Hey, this is Justin with Trade Tech. This is just a quick video to demonstrate how some of our our roof framing assemblies work. So we've got a roof plan here. We're just going to pretend like this is a conventional frame, stick frame roof, and we're going to frame out this valley area with these valley beams and ridge beam, and show you how those assemblies work. So let's just say that we've got a ridge beam that's going to be 2-ply 2x12, and then we got a couple valley beams that are going to be 2x2x12 as well. So to pick those beams up, we would just go to our beams folder in our wood subfolder, and all of these beams are going to be longer than 8 feet, so we'll select that. So the first thing we'll take off will be our ridge beam. So we'll select 2x12 for the size, SYP number 2. For description, we'll use, we'll say ridge beams. And let's just say it's 2 plies. And again, with the beam tools, with all of our beam tools, you can assign a pitch to them. This is just going to be a flat ridge beam, so we don't need a pitch. And we'll leave our length calculation at nearest 2 feet. And then we have two different hardware types that we can assign. Let's say we've got a beam hanger on one side, or maybe we've got another type of hardware on the other end. So we can assign that, pick up that hardware on the takeoff as well. And then we just want to make sure we're in the right folder for the location of our takeoff, which is roof. So we click OK, then we just do our segment takeoff of the beam. Okay, so for any flat beam or any regular pitch beam, which would be any beam within the roof system that you need to pick up that's going to run on the regular roof pitch. Let's say we got a dormer over here and we got a double LVL beam that runs on either side to support the dormer in the roof system, and it's going to run on the normal roof pitch. So we could use the regular beam tool and just use, input the pitch for that, and it's gonna add the pitch factor to our material length. For hip and valley beams, those pitches are different than your standard pitch. So we've got a couple beam tools set up to pick up hip and valley beams with. One of them for shorter than 8 feet that you want to pick up out of a set material length, and then we've got one exactly the same as the regular beam tools, only they're calculating based on the hip and valley pitch factor. So these two beams are going to be longer than 8 feet, so we'll select that. And we're going to say they're 2x12, SYP number 2. Okay, so the difference between a hip and valley as opposed to the regular pitch beam is you've got two pitches that you can select. And so what you're going to do is you're going to select the pitch that's on either side of your hip and valley. So let's say that this main roof pitch was 6, and our gable that we're going to frame in here on the other side of your valley is going to be, I know the plan says 6, but let's just say it's a 12 pitch. So we select 12. And it's a 2-ply beam. And we'll leave the description, hip and valley beams, nearest 2 feet for the calculation, and roof for our location folder. And then also with these hip and valley beams, if you've got a hold down at the bottom, or you've got some kind of hanger or hardware at the top of each beam, you can pick your hardware up here as well. Alright, so then we'll just do our segment takeoffs of our 2 valley beams. And let's take a look at the report real quick and see how it populates that material. So here's our materials by location report. We're going to scroll down to our roof location. Okay, so here's where it picked up our ridge beams. So we need, for our ridge beams, 2x12s, 16 foot, we need 2 of them. Our hip and valley beams, we need 2x12s by 18 feet to pick up that span of those valley beams. And since we've got 2 of them and they're 2-ply, it tells us we need 4 pieces of material to build those with. Okay, so let's say we've got this area that we need to frame in with some 2x12 rafters. So we'll go to our roofs folder, and we got a couple different main roof assemblies here. We've got one that will pick up the rafters and the sheathing if it's a stick frame roof, or let's say this is a truss roof and you're not going to be quantifying the trusses. You just need to pick up your sheathing and bracing and blocking, for the trusses. You could use the we've got an assembly set up to do that with. So let's use the rafters and sheathing and show you how that works. Again, for the assembly info, you would want to name it. And as with all the assemblies, you can duplicate these assemblies and set up as many different options as you want as far as material selections. So we'll call this 2x12 rafters 1212 with roof sheathing. And then you can set a bid amount per square foot here if you want to pick that up on your bid report. And then you would select your roof pitch. So this is going to be 12 is going to be our pitch. Then you just work your way across your tabs here. So for rafters, we're going to select 2x12s. SYP number 2. On center spacing, let's just say it's 24 on center. You've got a description here. And then again, with all of the assemblies that we have that are built from the joist tool, you've got the options here for your length calculations of your rafters, which we typically always leave at nearest even feet or nearest 2 feet. And then you can set a minimum and a new length. So as you work your way up the valleys, of course, you're going to get your smaller, jack rafters with your hips and valleys. So we can set a minimum length of 8, a new length of 12. So any rafter length shorter than 8 feet, it's going to figure out a 12-foot material. Then you've got 2 hardware types you can pick up as well, and this is per rafter. So if you've got one type of hardware at the top, let's say you got a hanger at the top for your rafter, and then at the bottom you've got some kind of hold down. You can select those, select how many of those pieces of hardware per rafter you need, and then also pick up your sheathing. We've got an on-off switch here for the sheathing, so that if you're just picking up your rafter material and you don't want to quantify the sheathing, you can just turn that off. And then, as with all of our assemblies, with any of these materials that you don't need, for example, maybe you don't need the hardware and you just select NA, and it's going to filter that material out and won't populate it in your reports. So with our sheathing, we can pick up our sheathing type, our board size, our thickness, sheathing thickness, a description, how many layers of sheathing, do we need sheathing clips, and if so, how many quantity per box. We can set our quantity per box here, and then a waste factor for our sheathing. And then we're just going to do our takeoff. We want to organize or do our takeoff in sections the way that our rafters would actually span. So we'll do our other side here. And then once we've done our takeoff of our 2 sections, we'll click into our takeoff area, select Draw Rafters. Okay, so we can see where we've drawn in the joist tool, the assembly has drawn in the rafters for us. So let's take a look at the report real quick and see how that populated. So if we go to our roof location, okay. So now we can see where we're picking up the material that we got off of our assembly we just did our takeoff with. So we've got our different rafter lengths. So we've got for rafters 8-footers, 18. We got some 14s, and then all the short rafters. So basically, all of these rafters, these 6-footers and 4-footers, it's calculating out a 12-foot material for you. So we picked up our rafters. We got our sheathing clips here. We got our roof sheathing that we picked up off of it. And then we also have a few other assemblies, any kind of ledger blocking, any kind of linear material that you need to pick up, you can use the ledger blocking assembly. We've also got an overhang framing assembly. Let's click on that and take a look at that. So this is what you can use to pick up your eave and your rake overhang framing materials. So we've got it set up to where you've got two different material types or sizes that you can pick up in one linear takeoff. So let's name this rake subfascia. And if you want to take off your rakes or any pitched material that's gonna be running on a pitch, you can actually give it assign a pitch to it, and it'll add that pitch factor to your material length. So we're gonna pick up this rake. So it's a 12-12 pitch, 5% waste. And let's say we've got a 2x4. We want to pick up a 2x4. We're going to use 16 footers. And, we want to pick up 2 plates of 2x4, per foot. And then for whatever reason, we want to pick up, let's say we want to pick up 1 plate of 2x6. We make sure our location is set to roof, click OK. So we can do that linear takeoff, and it's going to pick up that subfascia material. And then we could go back and use the same assembly without a pitch to pick up our eaves, so that we've got all of our roof beams, our rafters, our sheathing, and all of our overhang framing that we can pick up here with our roof assemblies.